What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and yes, there's a little bit of a change in scenery because I had to float into the kitchen, but I have the honor and privilege of talking to. She's a Bellator veteran, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt. She's the one and only Maria Rios. Maria, what's up?
Hey, what it is?
Well, first, a long time no see because we kind of missed each other. Like I had done the Gym Crashers like right pre-COVID, and then you kind of handled it with Dondo, during it, during your kind of your jaunt here back to Southern California. So it's like we missed each other, like crazy.
Yeah, man, it's been crazy, all of this stuff, right? But we just missed each other by a little bit, and COVID kind of put the smackdown on everybody. So now everybody's trying to like repiece back together some sort of normalcy and everything that we were doing prior. So it's coming along slowly but surely, hopefully.
No, that's literally it. And everybody's kind of adjusting to, I mean, I guess they always say like the new normal and all that jazz, but I mean, it's like whatever it is, and we'll kind of take what we can get, you know?
It's not really, it's kind of like crazy to think that this could be the new normal. Like, oh my gosh, like be prepared for some weird and interesting times coming up. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's almost like the doomsday preppers and the people of that ilk. They kind of foresaw a lot of the stuff. It was just, when you watched one of those shows or watched you went down the YouTube wormhole, it was like, in terms of like what people were prepping for, varied pretty greatly. Some were like apocalypse, others like the aliens and whatever. But then like now, like doing stuff in a bunker doesn't sound too bad. I mean, right. Joe Rogan is doing his $100 million show out of a bunker. So, I mean, again, the preppers were right.
Yeah. And now we're kind of not necessarily forced, but we're kind of put into a different way of thinking of even your careers and different things that you're doing in life. Like now you have to think a little bit differently because we're in a situation where, just even going to the gym is a process, and you have to be very careful in everything that you're doing because you don't know what's going to happen. So, and being more mindful of like, I mean, anything that you're saving, like even in your home, like you said, the bunker thing, like I'm sure people are saving things differently. Even like maybe collecting more canned food because you don't know what's around the corner.
Yeah, you say saving, but it's more like rationing. Like, I mean, I don't know what happened it's pretty telling what happened in like the Great Depression and everything like that. But it's like, we're kind of, with all of the advancements, whether it be health and technology and all that stuff wise, we're kind of reverting back to almost 100 years ago.
Yeah. I always joke about the whole toilet paper situation because I'm like, well, what did people do like when there wasn't toilet paper on a roll? Like what do we do then? And let's just start doing all that stuff because that's kind of like in my mind, I'm like, what if that happens? Like, what are we going to do? What is going to happen?
No, 100%. Which, I mean, I gotta ask, like, how's it there? And I know, like, kind of in the midst, you were able to come to California. I mean, was there like a crazy process, or what is the gym situation there where you are?
Well, here right now, like gyms, like fitness gyms, if you will, are open. You have to wear a mask. You have to have your temperature taken when you come in. As far as like group classes for jujitsu and sparring and stuff like that, that's not going on yet. Like there's still classes you can take, but if you do, it's 6 feet apart, and everyone has to wear a mask. So that's not really something, you can't, I mean, you can, don't get me wrong, you can, but a lot of the gyms here are not doing that because most people don't want to. They don't want to go to jujitsu practice and have to wear a mask and stay in their squares and do all the regulation thing. They want to train like normal or do a cardio kickboxing class with their mask on. And, and I just think people are kind of bummed out about it. But a lot of people here are still training. They're still doing their little, like their little groups that aren't really technically, there's not supposed to or whatever. I don't know. People are training. I mean, you can't really stop people from training. They're going to figure a way out to do it. And that's kind of like what's going on now in places where it's still prohibited.
Yeah, it's funny because like when you think about it, jujitsu really is the thing that you have to have contact. There isn't any 6 feet of distance. There isn't any training that you could do individually. I mean, there's drills that you could do, but you can only do so many shrimps and like kind of getting out of half guard and whatever before it gets monotonous. And again, it doesn't. That's better conditioning, but it doesn't help your overall game. Me myself, like I was going to go to 10th Planet Pasadena, which because grew up a pro wrestling fan, and like one of the premier grappling organizations that don't give out medals because I never wanted to be like an Olympian or whatever. I wanted to be a wrestler. So Naga gives out belts, right? So I'm all like, and it's the best one. I know Five does. There's a couple of organizations that do belts, but like Naga just looks like the best, right? And they were doing it right from the very beginning. So like I wanted a Naga belt. So I was gonna I literally say I had the money to go and go to 10th Planet Pasadena, and I think I went to Submission on the Shore, an all-female jiu-jitsu competition, right?
Yeah.
Over in Long Beach with Dondo and the rest of the guys, and then little did we know, the next week everything would shut down, and I was just like,
right when you were getting going.
Yeah, and this is the biggest layoff. So like I did, and I never mean it to be, but like when I first started training, I did 6 months, 4 to 7 times a week, like morning and night classes and what have you. Then lost my job at the time, relocated to Pasadena, and then ended up doing like same thing, 6 months, 4 to 7 times a week at a fight academy, and then I think it's been like 3, almost 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's weird.
Into it.
But talk to us about your like jiu-jitsu and combat sports journey, because now it's kind of vogue to have females competing and what have you, but like when you started, I mean, you're a brown belt now. That's one belt away from black. That wasn't always the case. So like how did you kind of come into combat sports?
So I started training jiu-jitsu in 2004. So at that time it was not, I mean, there were a couple females, but not a lot. Like there were 2 at the school that I started at, and then me being the third one. So a friend of mine, she's the one that introduced me to it. She was actually one of the girls that trained there, and she invited me to go check out a class. And I went, I checked out, I kind of like sat through the class. I didn't do like the orientation and all that other stuff. I just sat through the class, watched, and right after I was like, yeah, I'm definitely interested in doing this. And I signed up, and I've never stopped training since then. So, and the competition though, the scene for that was still really like they would pile girls together, and you would be like, your experience levels would be somewhat close, but it would be like, I remember, going up against girls that were a lot bigger than me, and like way stronger, because there wasn't enough to like separate weight classes and separate your division of level expertise or whatever. So that didn't come till like probably like around when I was like a purple belt. And then those big tournaments, they would have white or novice, blue, and they'd have more separate according to your level. But there was always like girls that were combined for weight classes, because there never usually was enough women. And then if there was like different weight classes, they'd ask you, hey, you want to like fight up a weight because this girl doesn't have anybody? And of course you're like, yeah, because you want the experience. And so, but now there's tons of women, so you don't ever have to worry about that now. You could fight at your normal weight class and your rank, and you'll have plenty of competition usually.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's funny that you say that, because I mean, we kind of mentioned submission on the shore, but I mean, Robert Simerson, the major domo of all things free admission media. Love you, Robert. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the free admission media channel on both Facebook and YouTube. Actually, the last episode on Tuesday night, well, last night, was all submission on the shore. But he is saying, can you come home? I want to eat Band-Aids with the crew. I don't know. And Dondo farts less when you're around, which is the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do around a lady. But Dondo does what he wants to do. So.
Oh, man, that was a good time. Dondo eating Band-Aids. Good time.
Yeah, and it's funny because this is actually a bit of a Gym Crashers reunion, because I mean, you preceded me coming in, so yeah. That's kind of cool too, right?
Yeah. That's a good little crew going on there with everybody. I miss them. I miss being there with you guys.
Me too. I mean, I was going out from LA area to Orange County to make the show and everything, and they've still continued to do the show, which I mean, more power to them. They're the unstoppable force, But yeah, I miss them too. Like being around that studio, and then also getting shit from John De La O right after. Those are like my heart broken. Like it's the opposite of Mario Yamasaki's. I'm like,
The way they show their love, and the more shit they talk to you, the harder time you get. You're like, okay, I must fit in here, because if they didn't like you, you definitely would know it.
Except for Joey the Bull, who always wants to talk shit. Oh my God, he challenged me to a fight. They had Christian Aguilera on after he knocked out, somebody, I can't even remember the person's name, but in his UFC debut, and I chime in, and he wants to challenge me to a fight. I'm like, what in the fuck? So Joey the Bull, coming for your ass.
Fight him.
I know. This is literally like fucking, what is it, Adam Ant versus Juggernaut from X-Men? That's kind of it.
That would be really entertaining. I think you guys should do it. And I think that you should wear like the Lucha Libre Speedo shorts. That would be awesome. Both of you guys have to dress like that if you fight. Just say it right now. Promise.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how good Joey the Bull's. I mean, in the Chronicles of Joey the Bull, I know for a fact he did bodyguard for Dennis Rodman, but he said he like basically challenged Tyson. So I mean, maybe he's just picking on small, diminutive black guys. I don't know.
That's a possibility. You never know. Do it.
Yeah. But no, I mean, so when you ended up in jiu-jitsu, like what was it? Because obviously In 2003, that's, I mean, 2003, 2004, we're looking at, almost 20 years ago, and the landscape looked different. And I know when I entered in like 20, I want to say it was like 2011 is when I started jujitsu, and
Yeah.
even still, it had kind of a stigma. Like, why is somebody's ass in my face? Why are they sweating in my mouth? Like, what in the hell, right? So I could only imagine what it must have been in 2004. So, what was it that drew you in? Like, was it a particular opponent, or just like yourself kind of evolving that you're like, I need this in my life?
Well, I was in a weird space. I was 21 in 2004, so I was in a weird space, kind of like doing a lot of really stupid stuff that you would imagine 21-year-olds doing, right? But I was kind of like stuck there. There wasn't much going on in my life that was helping me get out of that. And when I started training, it was like this whole new amazing element. And it was challenging me like in ways that I really, really enjoyed. And like I really found it pretty amazing that I was being like, the more I learned, the more I was able to I was like, pulling off certain things on on guys and people that were bigger than me, and it was kind of like, wow, like this is real, this is so awesome. And then when you get that feeling of like, I want to challenge myself against someone my own size in a competition. And I did my first competition, I think 4 months after I started training, and of course, like, I got destroyed. and and I was like, it pushed me because I was like, I want to do better, I want to win, I want to like feel the feeling of like getting my hand raised. So when I went back to training, I kind of was like, well, what are the like elements of what I'm doing? Like, oh, you need to like start eating better. Oh, you need to stop partying on the weekends and during the week. And like, I even smoked cigarettes back then. You need to quit smoking because you need to like do this other stuff to make you your conditioning better for jujitsu. And so like all these things started coming into play. I was surrounding myself with people that were pushing me in like really in a really good way to like better myself physically, and that right there just it betters people mentally too. So shit, I started competing and I never looked back, and then the next thing I I was um getting asked if I wanted to do MMA, and I was like, yeah. I do. I thought about it, because you're already around that environment. So I had done a ton of jujitsu competitions. I loved it. And that was kind of like the next challenge, like for me. Like, you think about something and it scares the shit out of you. And you're like, yeah, I should probably do this. And I had a coach at the time that presented me with a situation. He said, he told me like this. He said, if you're genuinely you don't want to do it, then don't do it. But if you're just not doing it because of fear, then you need to come back to the gym tomorrow and we're going to fucking fight. And I was like, okay. So the next day, I thought about it and I'm like, he's right. Like, what's the reasons I'm not pursuing this? And just fear of the unknown, fear of not knowing what the hell you're doing. And so I walked in the gym the next day and I said, let's fight. And that's where it started.
I think that's a great story. And I mean, to talk about like how grappling is so different than anything else, right? You mentioned, like you stopped smoking, right?
Yeah.
When you think back, like wild world of sports, and you would see like bodybuilders and people that are like pulling trucks, with their teeth and everything like that. They would smoke like a packet of cigarettes a day. Like, they were doing like, Newport commercials and whatever. So like the fact that you needed to be like super cardio invasive, to do jujitsu, it's like, it's something contrarian to everything that we knew before, and what
Yeah.
strength is, and you know what challenges are. You know, like it's so crazy.
Yeah. It's kind of like well, for me anyway, I don't know if it's like this for everybody, but it brought like a whole new world into my life with people, with just like even simple eating habits that I never I didn't, like I never paid attention to what I was eating and how it affected my body, or I didn't really give a shit, why would I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't doing anything productive physically that I needed to like pay attention to, my eating habits, or how much even how much water I was consuming, like it all plays a huge part in that. And it brought my awareness to that. It brought awareness to like just all the gross things I was doing to myself, that I'm like, wow, like this is so damaging for my body, and it doesn't help me in the gym, and that, like, I'm not gonna lie, like I was like, when I started beating especially people that were like bigger and stronger than me in the gym, it was like it drove me even harder, because I was like, I'm not a very big person. I wasn't a very strong person, especially then. It was all like mostly technique. And it was because I went every single day. It was like I got so addicted. I couldn't stop. And then you see like the results happening. You see the little things changing. Oh, you're catching people, or your strength even changes, or your ability to go all the rounds of class without wanting to like throw up. And just all these little things that started happening. And it, man, it's the best kind of addiction to have.
No, you were talking about like I mean the addiction, right?
Yeah.
The adrenaline rush, right? And anybody that's been on the mat, whether it be striking or definitely in any grappling art like jujitsu or judo or anything like that. I mean, it's an adrenaline rush, right? And especially after like you finally get a particular move, in jiu-jitsu, whether it be a sweep or your first armbar or whatever, like it's a watershed moment. You're like, oh man, maybe I
Yeah.
can do this. Do you remember like that, and what your first move was?
Oh, yep, I sure do. So my first like submission that I actually got that was like clean, and I tapped the guy, was a triangle. And so when I first started training jiu-jitsu, I was training under Alberto Crane. He owns a Legacy in Burbank. So he's originally from Santa Fe. We're from the same town. So he started his first gym here, and that's where I started training. So I'll never forget, it was I think my second or third time in the advanced class, where they would roll a lot more. And I got the triangle on this young man. I don't even remember his name. I think his name might have been Michael. I don't even remember. But he was a lot stronger, and he was a wrestler. And so he would always like destroy me. Like wrestlers are strong. They have killer base. They're hard to tap just in general, because they have like a really tough mentality. And this kid, I caught him in the triangle, and I tapped him, and it was like, and I just remember Al coaching me through it. Like I knew the setup, but I didn't know how to like lock it in, in the moment, I guess. And he coached me through it, and I got it. And I was like, oh my God. And from then on, I would try to triangle everybody. It was like, even if I took the back or whatever, I was always looking to try to get the head and arm and triangle choke people. But that was like my one moment when I was like, yes, oh, fuck yeah.
And I mean, for like a white belt just beginning, that is, I mean, a triangle, especially when you're trying to figure out the body mechanics, and, like, everybody's got that like white belt kind of like oblong, like it just feels weird, right?
Yeah.
Like your body feels weird and everything. So for you to pull off a triangle, especially against a larger teammate, holy shit. I mean, holy shit balls, Batman. That's fucking incredible. I remember, I mean, I think I might have hit like an armbar, And I swear I almost did like a Kurt Angle, winning the Olympics in '96, like dropped to my knees and like that, right? And
Yeah.
then somebody just kind of nudged me, like, fucking be cool. I'm like, oh yeah, and then
You're like,
and then
not a
I got
tournament.
spotted the next 8 rounds and shit. But
Yeah.
it meant for a cool story at that time. But I mean, a triangle is a pretty fucking complex move for somebody that is just finding their, I guess, not sea legs, but jits legs in
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu.
Yep. And it feels good, like when your ability to listen and move. So like being, I guess, coachable, or like listening to what he was saying, and actually my body just was doing it instead of being like, what? Like, and I just knew I loved the sport since the first time I watched class. I just was like, I love it. I love this energy. I wanna do this. And like I've since then, I mean, I have changed schools quite a bit, over the years, but and like I dedicated a good portion of time to training MMA when I first started fighting in 2010. And so like the promotion part of it hasn't happened. Like, I know people that I first started training with, they're already black belts, but to me it doesn't matter because I've never stopped training. It's always been a part. Since 2004 I've never stopped training jiu-jitsu. I mean, it's been the gi part had put a little bit more aside, and I focus more on the wrestling part and the no gi part for MMA purposes and stuff, but it never left me. And it's like, it's pretty amazing, like when you think back on it and you're like, damn, I've been training for fucking forever. I'm old. Oh great. I just exposed myself. But it's pretty amazing. I could never picture my life without it, ever. I'll do it. I'll train till the day I die, probably.
Yeah, and Zachary Johnson, boxer and mixed martial artist out of New York, sends strength. Yeah, man. Um, but I mean, so that's the thing. So I mean, starting in 2004 and then fighting in 2010, right? So there's
Yeah.
a 6 year gap. I mean, obviously you're training jujitsu, but like,
Yeah.
were you kind of getting, especially, this is kind of like the onset, in 2004, we're 4 years removed from, Zuffa buying the UFC, right? So
Right.
was there a conscious decision, like, I'm not just going to do jits, like I'm going to strike and possibly get into MMA, um like at what point did that happen?
So, like the academy where I first started training had Thai boxing. So I did both. But I always took jujitsu more seriously. Like I did Thai boxing class like maybe once a week, maybe, but I was in jujitsu class every day. And then I would come to open mats on Saturday. Um, and I really I did basic class, and then I did advanced class. And then after, if I had enough energy, I would do the Thai boxing class. So it was always there. Like I always liked that. And I'll never forget, like, one of the girls that, was a really big inspiration was Sarah Boyd. She did MMA. She was a purple belt when I first started training. She was badass. She'd always beat my ass, and I loved it every second of it. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be as badass as her. And, I always followed like the female MMA, because it was like not as anywhere near popular as it is now. But, and I would always, like, my adrenaline would go and I'd be like, oh, that's so badass. I totally could picture myself doing that. But at that time, I was so absorbed with the jujitsu competitions, and I competed like every chance I got. I competed all the time. And in 2009, I won the Nogi Worlds and the Nogi Nationals, and as a blue belt. And that was like, it was such a big deal to me. It was like one of those moments where you're like, because then it was like they put the women together. So it was my weight class, but I fought 2 purple belts to win. And I was like, this is amazing. And that was kind of like, after those 2 tournaments, I was like, I want to fight. I want to see what it's like to spar. And then in 2010, I moved to Portland, and I trained Portland, Maine, and I trained with Amanda Buckner and her husband Jay Jack, and they're the ones that kind of opened the gateway door to the MMA, to the dark side. No, but after that, like, in training with her, she was like, man, I admired her so much. Amanda Buckner, she was like one of the top 5 at 135 of her time. Just a freaking badass. She was a bad bitch, man. She still is, but just training with her like, your ultimate like dream would be to train with somebody that you admired greatly when you first get into the sport, right? And I got to do that. I was like, how lucky am I, right? And I got my ass whooped by her like on a almost daily basis, like during fight camp, and every beating I got helped me like become better and better. And I had a really good amateur fight record, and then I moved to California and I turned pro and kept going. But yeah, like, such an amazing experience training with these people.
No, and you know what? It's funny because you're a brown belt now, but in many ways, especially in the belt rank before, and especially now, any hapless white belt, like, you're their Sarah Boyd, right? They're,
Yeah.
essentially, the MMA badass chick that also happens to be, my sensei, my instructor and whatever, and she can tap me 9 ways to Sunday. Doesn't matter if I outweigh her or I feel like I'm stronger or whatever. And that's not just the guys, that's the girls, like, but you're that for them. And that's gotta be a cool, I don't know if you realize it, but like, that's gotta be a cool shift,
Yeah. Like, and anytime, so when I first started teaching jujitsu, I started teaching kids. And then when I moved to Portland, I started a women's class. And even when I went to California, I had a women's class that I started. And I have always wanted to, like, I remember the people that made made a difference in my training career, if you will. And I always tried to, like, not necessarily be that for everybody, but at least shine through to people like that. Like, I want to be in a situation, or I want to be somebody's like when they're feeling like, fuck, man, this isn't for me. And then they come into the gym and it all changes when they get to train with me, maybe, or they talk to me. And like, I remember days where I was like, fuck, man, this is just miserable. Like, I'm training so hard and I feel like a bag of shit. Like, I'm not getting any better. I am getting my ass kicked on a daily basis. Like, what the fuck? I'm training so hard. And then, like, like, Amanda would, say some shit to me, or like, we'd train, and, it just made such a huge difference. Like, it almost like being the staple or the inspiration to people to keep going, to push past that part. Like, cause it gets better. And the more you train, the better you get. And, like, we all have like days where like, fuck, man, but that all goes away. But that's like the ultimate goal, is to, be inspiring to people to keep going, to push past like the irritating parts of training where you're just like, oh, this is sucking so bad, and knowing that it's going to get better if you push past it.
No, and it always gets better. It always gets better. Now, Colin Crandall from the MMA Power Hour says she's a brown belt, but I'm a black belt in interviewing. Great work. No, and again, if you guys don't already know, check out MMAPowerHour.com, as well as MMA Power Hour, literally everywhere, YouTube, Fight TV, a litany of other things. And there's some cool things that Dr. Adam Rorta is working on. So again, you got to check out MMA Power Hour on all of their social media channels to find out exactly what that is. So I'm just saying. And oh, you guys are no. This is the Maria show, but I appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. But yes, this I mean it's cool because your career in combat sports kind of mirrors, both the prevalence of jiu-jitsu, the prevalence of MMA, women's MMA, and again, these are things that are now commonplace. Dana White in 2010, right, was famously saying, "Oh, there will never be women in the UFC," and especially that's the year that you made your debut. But you put a female fight on any card, right, amateur, pro, wherever in the world you are, that's generally going to be the fight of the night in most instances. I mean, Invicta is one of my favorite promotions because I think the women are even after Ronda Rousey, even after Cyborg, even after Liz Carmouche and Gina Carano and you as well, right? It's still a kind of not so much taboo thing, but I mean, people still don't know about women's MMA, which I think is an atrocity. But I mean, your career kind of mirrors all of that, and you're continuing, going from New Mexico to Portland, Maine, here in Cali, and then it's just like you've mirrored a lot of the kind of the East Coast scene and the Southwest scene and the SoCal scene, and been able to take each part of your journey with you, and then be able to kind of parlay that and train anybody that trains with you and takes classes from you. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty, like, I appreciate and I'm so grateful for being able, the fact that I've lived in different states and fought in different states and competed, and just the fact that training at different facilities, because everybody teaches differently, everybody has different tricks up their sleeves, and everybody has a different way of explaining maybe how to execute something that might work better for you. And so to me, not only has that helped me in my fighting and in my jiu-jitsu, everything, but also it helps me become a better teacher. It helps me become better at explaining things, maybe to somebody that, because there's always somebody in class maybe that just doesn't get it or just doesn't understand that the way you're explaining it. And when you learn from tons of different people, you have the expands your knowledge so much more. And you could be teaching an armbar, basic armbar, and maybe the way you're explaining it, people aren't getting it. But, now I have the ability to explain it 5 different ways. And then maybe somebody will catch on and be like, oh, dang, that's it. That's it. I get it now. It's been so wonderful. Like, I always encourage people, train as many places as you can, like meet people, network, because you learn so much more that way. Your game, I know everybody has their heart of where they train, like their home gym, but expand your knowledge, learn from other people. Because that's all it does. It just makes you better. It just makes you so much better. And you learn so much more. I don't know how to explain it. Like, you learn how to do the simplest thing, but a million different ways. So it's been so helpful and amazing. And now at the end of this month, I'm going back to Portland, and I'll be training with Jay and Amanda again. So I'm so excited to be a part of the academy there again. It's like,
that's tremendous. And I mean, you were just there not too long ago, and trained there. So whether you knew it or not, like, things were in the work, and it just karmically it worked out that you get to kind of dabble. I mean, you were on Gym Crashers, and you came here, then you went back to New Mexico, then you were able to go to Portland, Maine. So in the last year, where everybody is kind of like, it's in a precarious position in many ways, in shapes and forms, I mean, you have found a way to evolve and, I mean, literally kind of give back to all of the places that made you.
Yeah. And I mean, this last year has been a shit show. Like not just in the world, but also in my personal life, took a hard hit. And I was struggling for a long time, emotionally, mentally, and finally am back to a better place. And that's why I was in California. And then I came back to New Mexico, and, I took a trip out to Portland, and I was trying to like basically find my way again. And out there, I did. I said, this is where this is it. This, like the thing that I was not necessarily searching for, but the thing that needed to happen. And I said, this is it. This is where I need to be. And this is the best place for myself, for my daughter. And, I talked to a coach out there, and he's like, we're going to get fights again, and it's going to be great. And I'm like, I know it, like I'm going to do it. So I'm so excited. I can't wait.
Which I gotta ask, because it was actually asked in the chat, like, what's your next appointment? So I don't know if that is a fight or maybe you're coaching, but I mean, are you looking to get back into fighting again?
Oh yeah, I'm going to. I've already made up my mind, and there's so much going on in the world of women's MMA right now that it won't be hard. Like when I first started, it was a little bit hard to find opponents, and then if you found an opponent, like I fought a lot at catch weights and stuff like that because there wasn't a strong 125 group or whatever. And now there's tons, and there's women in their 30s fighting, and even in their late 30s fighting, all the way up to like 17, or down to 17. So it's like there's plenty. And I started there, and I trust them, and I trust, not that I didn't trust any of my other coaches, but it's like there was a bond that was created when I first started, where I was pushed past every limit I thought was possible for myself, like physically, mentally, emotionally. And I had, Jay and Amanda, and they were there, and they backed me and helped me through it all, and guided me to where I was able to do it, further on in my career. So it's kind of like pretty amazing. I'm going back there. I'm going to fight again, definitely compete again. And I want to work on getting my black belt under Jay, because his black belt tests are they're grueling and beyond any other test I have ever seen anybody take. So I want to do that to myself, because I want to feel like I fucking earned that thing. Like I went through hell and back in a 7-hour long test that is, to me, that's like how it should be done. I mean, not everybody agrees with that, but I like have a lot of stuff in the making for the upcoming years that's going to be really positive and good for my MMA career and just me in general. So I'm excited.
Man, holy shit, 7-hour black belt test. I mean, obviously, if you're gonna cement somebody with their black belt, which is, I mean, for most is the highest kind of echelon that you can do. I mean, we're not even talking to that like coral belt, Machado brothers, Gracie brothers, but just black belt. That's, I mean, when you start out and you really find your way in it, that's kind of what you want to aspire to. So, I mean, a 7-hour black belt test. Holy shit. I'm all like, is this like Krav Maga? Like, it's like people going to shut out the lights. And I mean, you don't have to disclose his
no,
teaching.
I mean, he doesn't care. I mean, his tests are like making sure that you have the knowledge of all the things that you've been taught, and you have to display that in front of the entire school. So it's not only like performing the knowledge that you've been taught to make sure that you know it and you have the ability to perform it correctly, but making sure that you know how to do it under pressure. And those two things are key, not only for like competitive, but in life. Like you know what I mean? Like for self-defense purposes in life in general, like how are you going to perform under pressure? How are you going to execute the technique when it really, really matters in a life and death situation? So he creates a pretty intense environment. And after the end of your test, you will roll with everybody in the room, which is pretty physically demanding and emotionally demanding. And so that's why it takes so long, because it's not just making sure that you have the techniques down and that you're performing them correctly. It's making sure that you can push past that mental part of everything. I thought you were putting on some coffee.
Oh no. Yeah,
um,
there was fun interference that happened here right there. No, wait, but I mean, that's incredible, and it's kind of cool that they. I mean, it's weird because there have been a kind of a form of like craziness that's happened in jiu-jitsu, right? Where fake black belts have appeared, or somebody like, I mean, no disrespect to like Rashad Evans, but like he won the UFC title and then got his black belt, and yeah, I mean, it's not that he doesn't deserve it. I'm not gonna say that at all, but I mean, in terms of like getting, it's a kind of an analogy of like him essentially applying jujitsu in the highest levels, right, of like combat, but I mean, I'm sure if you went through like a whole drill with him and what have you, at least at the time where he attained his black belt, the ABC and whatever, combat jujitsu is different than
oh yeah,
like jujitsu,
yeah,
right?
it's totally different than like sports style jujitsu for sure. And that's like a lot of gyms are like that. Like you show up to the classes, you are there X amount of days, and you get a stripe on your belt. And I mean, I understand the business part of it. I understand, you know, I understand that part. I'm not saying that that's crap or that people shouldn't do that. But for me personally, um, I want to know that each stripe on my belt was earned and not just given to me, because for whatever reason, and when I do achieve my black belt, I want to know that, because it's the ultimate, right? It's the highest of the high. Well, I mean, your coral or red belt is next, but like that's what, you dream of being, that because you put so many years into the sport, and that's your one of the biggest achievements you can get. And what better way to do it than be completely put through the ringer, knowing that you got out alive and you worked so hard for that. You studied for it. It's like graduating college. You've been in college for fucking ever. And now you're finally getting your doctorate degree and master's or whatever the fuck it is. You're graduating with honors and you're so fucking proud of yourself. You put in so much work, so many hours of studying and testing and all this shit. It's like the same thing to me. So many hours of training, of blood, sweat, and tears, like fighting and getting your ass kicked. And then finally, you will get that degree. You get that. And you're just like, fuck yeah, I earned this. I've been earning this since day one. So, yeah. Good things to come in these next couple of years for sure.
No, for sure, and I mean, especially, with you kind of, you know, training actively to return, you make your eventual return to the cage. You've had some pretty cool moments thus far, right? Because, I mean, you're a Bellator veteran, and the athlete that you basically were put in front of, or put in front of you, was none other than, I mean, Bellator world champion now, Elimele McFarlane, you know, and I mean, Bellator, it's the second biggest promotion in the world in many respects, right? So how was that experience? That had to be pretty cool.
Oh my God, it was amazing. I got to, fight one of the top 125er. She was amazing. And, like each experience, I lost to decision, but each experience is like, it's so rewarding, win or lose, Um, and that one was one, like an ultimate one. I fought one of the top girl, which was an amazing experience. Like in that itself, that you can, do well up against someone who's very, very good. And the organization, like, it's just overall, it's like you can say that you did something fucking amazing. And that doesn't mean it's never going to happen again, So it's like, well, I know I can do that. I know I've been there before. So let's go. It's just, I would never take back any of those times that even, I fought and lost, because they're definitely lessons, and what it's like. So that bitter taste that you had in your mouth when you're like, fuck, man, I could have done X, Y, and Z. And you take a lot from a win, but you take a lot more from a loss, because you look back on those videos and you're like, oof, was it mental? Was it the physical part, or was it both? And you can go back to the drawing board and recreate. So that way, when you step back in, you have 10 times the arsenal that you did before. So that's like, you can't get that in any other thing. Personally, I don't think you can, but than those kind of experiences.
Man, and that's the thing. Never say never, especially in combat sports, because, you know, one call away, you find. I mean, no greater example than Joe Soto, right? Henan Brow basically, came in way overweight, for his fight with TJ Dillashaw, and Soto was on the undercard, like the early prelims and whatever, and he made weight. Brow did it, and he finds himself challenging for the UFC world title against TJ Dillashaw. So, I mean, anything can happen, really.
Yeah,
Who's to say that, it doesn't happen again for Bellator world title?
you never know. Like, you just don't. Like, I'm going to be in New England now, like, and they have NEF, the New England fights. So that'll be where I start. And I want to do some jiu-jitsu competitions. And then, one of the guys from the academy just fought in Bellator. So it's there. It's in the works. It's never, ever say never, and especially for women's MMA, like we are on the up and up, men in the sport have been doing it for a lot. It's been big for them for a very, very long time, and it will still be that way for them. But the female part of it is just exploding now. So it's like, that will be a lot easier. It'll be easier to find opponents. It'll be easier to get in the mix and big shows and stuff like that. So I'm so excited. I have a lot to do, and I just can't wait to do it and be out there again, because it's a totally, like I said, 2020 has been a shit show for me, and I am so ready to like take that and all the experiences that it has brought, the good, the bad, the ugly, and put that into something super amazing in these upcoming years. So I'm like, I can't wait for it to happen. It'll be really exciting. And I told Dondo and everybody, I'm like, you guys need to come out there and do a show out there, because one, nobody, it's from east, one coast to the next coast, and nobody's been that way. And there's so many good fighters out there. It'll be so exciting.
You know what? I might have to. I mean, send me names, and I will seek them out. Yeah, and they're going to be right here on the Corded Woods. That's for sure. Yeah, because I mean, like the travel stuff and whatever, and when we can, and when Dondo and Robert and Sean Lorma say go, pretty much gonna go. But I mean, there's no time like the present, is what I'm saying. It's like,
Yeah.
so again, if you're a Northeast fighter, come here,
Yeah.
according to Woods. Just slide in those DMs. I'm just saying, love to interview you. And it's just not, podcast. I mean, it's not just like fighters or anything like that, but it's like we're just talking. We're just talking, man. So again, guys and gals of the Northeast, come on, I'm waiting for you. Clock is ticking, Now, I mean, you're talking about 2020 being kind of a shit show, right? And for the most part, people are at home, right? And it's kind of weird. But that's, I mean, in many respects, it pales into comparison of like, being a fighter and going through a fight camp and all of that jazz. So, what a lot of people are kind of like searching what they can do on their downtime. People are starting businesses or even starting new shows. So like when you're done with fight camp, when you're kind of the tunnel vision is off and what have you, and you got some downtime, like what do you like to do? I mean, what are you listening to? What are you reading? What are you watching? Any of those things?
Oh, for downtime? Oh gosh. So I've been reading let's see. I have like this bad habit of starting books and then I get really into it and then I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I have this other book." And then I'll start reading in that book and then I'll get super into it and I'm like, "Oh, I should probably go back to this book and finish it." So, right now, let's see. I am in the process of reading No Mud, No Lotus, which is a really great book about learning how to suffer well, if you will. And it's been good so far. But reading and drinking coffee is one of my ultimate favorites. Yeah. But after a fight camp or a hard training, I'm like on chill mode. I'm like, okay, what are we eating? Let's disconnect from everything and everyone. Just to kind of like hit the reset button. So eating the things that maybe I wasn't eating during fight camp, I think that's pretty standard for most fighters. Like you go ahead and have the indulgence that you cut out during fight training, and reading kind of chill mode, like disconnecting, like, not really paying attention so much to social media or, what have you. If I what I used to do when I was in Portland is I would go camping and just, cook steaks and be in nature and totally like unavailable. And that's like love it. But when I lived in LA, I would honestly, I'd go get, those specialty donuts, like they have like specialty donuts or it's like crazy flavors, like cereal or maple bacon or all these wild flavors. I would go and get like, what do you call it? I would get a dozen of those. You spend like $50 on donuts and then you just house those fuckers and you're like, oh my God, I can't eat. I'm up a weight class. But
yeah, well, I mean, theoretically speaking, nobody's really fighting on weight anyway, right?
Yeah.
So, after weigh-ins, which I mean, weigh-ins are kind of a convoluted deal, borrowed over from wrestling, but but you got to have those cheats. I mean, even The Rock has like 3 pizzas and like 8 double stacks full of pancakes and whatever. So, I mean, you gotta treat yourself a little bit, even if you feel shitty afterwards. It's good going in for sure.
Yeah.
Now, dude, thank you for taking the time. Where can people find you on social media?
So Facebook is just my name, Maria Rios. Instagram is unicorn_fitness 007. And that's pretty much all I got. Just Instagram and Facebook.
Me too. Me too. So yeah, you're not wrong in that. Not at all. And I actually meant to ask before, but there's obviously been a litany of people that have encouraged you and helped you along the way. Family, sponsors, all this jazz. So let's get some shout outs out of the way.
Well, I definitely want to give a shout out to J Jack and Amanda Buckner, because just for breathing some life back into me. And all my training partners, there's so many, they keep you going, pushing you and keeping you on track when you're on the lowest points of everything, and all my friends and fam bam in LA. Like, I love you guys. I love the Gym Crashers crew. I miss you guys. You Woods, thank you so much. And like all of my coaches out there. And yeah, there's just so many. I don't have any sponsors right now. If anyone wants to sponsor me, I like donuts and coffee and just kidding.
Yeah, so if you're a donut or a coffee company, I mean,
mostly
slide
coffee.
in the DMs.
I'm trying to like chill on the donuts, but
Your former
any
teammate, one Ghost Pepper Gonzalez, actually, he's been eating protein donuts, which is like,
hey, what?
Huh? Yeah, like those things
Where do we
don't usually go together, but I mean,
I'm gonna have to bet.
Yeah, we're gonna probably have to raid his not closet, pantry. That's it. That's where you keep food. Yeah, for some protein donuts. But dude, thank you so much for doing this. This is awesome. And then we'll probably circle back once we get a fight date. How about that?
Oh yeah, I'll keep in touch with you and give you some names to possibly have on your show, and that'll be good. But yeah, thank you so much for having me and let me, talk about myself. And anytime, man, anytime.
No, you're awesome. You're awesome. But dude, this has been According to Woods with Maria Rios, and we are out. Peace. Thank you guys for your listening. Come on.